Yo, look, just a little, this is going to be a quickie, all right? I don't have a lot of time to do this right now. I didn't have time to do it last night. I wanted to do it last night, but wife was tired. She wanted to go to bed early, and when I crank this big ass amp up of mine, it makes a boatload of noise. So it's an acoustic, the brand, acoustic G120 DSP. It's got built-in effects that I never use. Never. The distortion on it sounds awful. I don't really like it. It's kind of grody. Few things. This video is I'm gonna talk about going into the face of the amp first, into the front, and then I'll do a separate video because I got to make different connections and stuff, and you guys don't want to see my big old butt flashing up in the camera while I'm bending over connecting stuff. So the first video I'm going to do is going to be to the face of the amp, okay? With and without the dummy plug. Luckily for me, I have cats and they chewed through one of my little 1/8" cables. So there's your dummy plug. It's a stereo plug, right? Stereo plug, tip, ring, sleeve, TRS. 3 sections. It's got 3 sections. TRS, tip, ring, and sleeve. Just cut off and taped. Okay? No big deal. I'm going to do this first without the dummy plug and let you hear. And again, because I'm doing it from my phone, the sound may not be great. Plus, this ear's completely clogged up. I can't hear crap out of it right now. Nothing. I got nothing. And the first thing that I had to do, I brought it back. I brought my ME-80 out. It's down here on the floor. The first thing I had to do was level match. Level matching, simple. Plug the ME-80 into the face. No dummy plug. We're just going to use this as like a standalone, like a bank of pedals. I'm not going to use the cab sim at all. I'm just going to use it in manual mode and just kick on and off the different effects that I want to do. Well, the first thing you got to do, start with a clean sound, right? Turn everything off. All right. You can leave your reverb on. I suppose that's okay. But I'm going to turn everything off, and each time you add an effect, you have to level match. You have to make sure that here's the absolute clean sound of this amp. This is nothing but, this is just the reverb. Very basic. Now the amp is not turned up loud at all. Everything at the end of the line, as far as your signal chain goes, right? Guitar, pedal, amp. Everything in the back end is going to add gain if you turn it up. So I'm going to keep the amp volume low and use the volume control, the output level from the pedal. That's my favorite way to do it because the pedal's right in front of you when you're playing. Your amp may be 10, 12 feet behind you. The pedal's right in front of you, and if you need to make, quick adjustments to volume, it's easier to just lean over and turn that output level knob down. I never pull mine up above a quarter. Never. It blows the amp. Well, the amp doesn't blow, but it'll rip the paint off the walls. It gets so loud. So my amp right now, the volume in my amp is set at 1. 1. Okay? Now, if I need more volume, there's that clean tone. There's my absolute clean tone. If I need more volume, I'll just go to the pedal and add volume right from the pedal. Okay, I'm going to turn that back down to about a quarter. It's right now, it's at the, we'll call that the 9 o'clock position. I've got it at the 9 o'clock position. Okay, level matching. That's the most important thing. And y'all don't usually see me smoking a cigarette, but I'm going to do it anyway. Level matching, right? There's my absolute clean tone. That's with nothing but the reverb on. Okay. And ordinarily, I don't use the reverb when I'm in my studio because I got a better studio reverb in there. But I'm using it for out here today. I'm not using the reverb on the amp. I'm not using any effects from the amp whatsoever. It's loaded with them, but I don't like them. I'm kind of picky that way. But here's my amps. That's my absolute clean tone, right? Turn that up just a little bit. Maybe you can hear it a little bit better. Go up a little more. Now, every time you add an effect, depending on what the final level of that effect is, you're going to have to level match. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on my mod, and this is my detune, okay? a very slight increase in volume on that. Now, if it's too loud, if the effect is turned up too high, then what's going to happen is your absolute clean tone is going to be one volume, and then your added effect volume is going to be a different volume. It's going to be louder or softer. You need to level match, and that's best done with ears, not with headphones. Okay, level match with the amp the way you're going to play it. Okay, and then go in and put the pedal in manual mode, and then individually tweak the little output volumes for each effect you're going to add. Okay, I'm going to turn my mod back off. Now I'm going to add overdrive and distortion. I think this is the turbo distortion on this one. In manual mode again, right? All I've got is reverb. Now I'm going to turn my overdrive or the distortion on, and we need to make sure that the output level for the distortion matches the output level of the clean tone. You don't want to be playing along with a clean tone and then smash that overdrive pedal and your volume explodes to 3 times what it should be. You got to level match with your ears. Do it right in front of your amp. Best place to do it. Okay, so I'm going to turn my overdrive on. I think I've already level matched this set of patches, or this set of effects. You hear how much louder it was? I want it to be a little bit louder, but I don't want it to go out of control the instant I hit the pedal. So I'm going to turn my overdrive back on, turn it down, and then listen to them together. You notice the overdrive's only slightly louder. When I kick that distortion on, it's only slightly louder. That's what I'm looking for, okay? If you need a boost for a solo, add that as a separate effect. And then you'll have to level match that as well. So that your rhythm tone, right? Here's my rhythm tone. Then you set whatever boost you want to have. You can use a compressor, you can use the boost, you can use the solo, whatever you want to do. But just make sure that that volume's only slightly louder so it'll carry above what you were just doing. You don't want them to be the same volume. You'll get lost in the mix, okay? Now, like I said, that's without the dummy plug, right? Level matching is a process that you have to do for every single patch. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but it has to be done for and it has to be done. Like this one patch right here is my Joe Satriani patch, okay? And I've got compressor set, I've got an amp chosen. The amp is not on right now, but I've got an amp chosen. I generally, if I'm just going to use it as a bank of effects, I'll just turn the amp off, the amp selector off. And without the dummy plug, there's no cabinet sim either. So I'm not using an amp sim or cabinet sims at all. I'm just using the Boss pedals. It's just like a regular pedal board, okay? But like a regular pedal board, you have to level match all those pedals. When you kick the pedal on, you don't want it softer or louder. You want it to be relatively the same as your original. And this, again, here's my starting patch, my starting sound. Now I'm going to turn my mod on. I'm going to turn the detune on, and you'll notice same volume. In this instance, I'm actually using my compressor as a boost for a solo. So I'll turn the overdrive distortion on. Now I'm going to add the compressor to that, and you'll notice it's only very slightly louder. Now we'll turn the compressor off. It's a little more subdued. It's a little less louder, and that's what you're shooting for. Like I said, I'm using the compressor as a boost for a solo, and that's really good. It'll help maintain that tone while you're soloing, and it'll help you float above the rest of the band. Okay, now let's add. I don't have EQ set up on it right now. I don't have the amp set up on it right now. That was the compressor. You heard the compressor and the distortion together. Now we'll turn them on. Here's my distorted sound. I'm going to add the mod, you'll notice there'll be a difference in volume. There's one of my cats right there. That's Getty. We adopted him on December 21st, 12/21, which backwards is 21/12. Oh no, that's Charlie. That's Papa Charlie. Charlie and Getty kind of look alike. That's Big Papa Charlie right there. You have to level match. Not only do you have to level match each individual patch, you have to level match each effect. When you turn an effect on, you don't want your volume to jump all of a sudden. That's not good. Your other bandmates are not going to really be crazy about that. So you got to be very careful, okay? And I know it's kind of a pain to have to level match every individual patch. But if you want to get the most out of it and make it sound good and not, the last thing you want to do, man, is to kick that pedal on. You know, you kick your distortion on and your distortion level's too low and nobody can hear it. You don't want that, okay? Same thing with a solo. Yeah, you want a little bit more volume for the solo, but you don't want it so loud it starts screeching and howling. You don't want that, all right? This one's going to be a quick hit right here. Now, what I'm going to do, the last thing I'm going to do for this video, and I'm going to do the same thing for the next video about running it to the effects return. I'm going to put this in, and then I'm going to turn my amp sim on. Now, this is going to activate the cabinet sim, okay? And you may not want to use that. It's not really the best way to do it. In fact, I wouldn't really advocate using the amp sim at all if you're going to go straight to the face of the amp, okay? I wouldn't use the amp sim at all, all right? But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the difference in tone. And I don't know, this phone may not pick it up well enough. But I'm going to show you the difference in tone. That was without. Here's my basic distorted sound. Oh, let me turn my modulation off. Sorry, I just scared the crap out of my cat. Move, baby Charlie. Okay, that's without the amp sim turned on and without the dummy plug for the cab sim. Now I'm going to turn them both on, and you'll hear a slight difference. Through the face, it's not as dramatic a change. I'll just put it that way. Let me put the cab sim in. Turn that on. And now I'm going to turn my amp sim on. And I believe I've got the clean amp sim chosen because I'm using, I use the distortion and overdrive effects for that. I don't add gain to the amp to get distortion because for recording they don't sound very good. The amp distortions and cab sims for recording don't sound as good. So here's the same thing, right? Same sound. My amp sim is now turned on and my cab sim is now turned on. Now listen to the difference. It's slightly louder because I didn't level match the amp. The amp sim's actually cranked up kind of high. So I'm going to go to the amp and I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. Where's my amp sim? There it is. Wow, that's actually down fairly low right now, isn't it? Let's see. This is where it was. Now I'm going to turn it down a little bit and you'll hear a slightly different tone. Now that's level matched with the amp sim in place, although I don't really recommend using the amp sims and the cab sims if you're going to go in the face. It does work fairly well when you're going into the effects return of the amp. That's when it really shines. It doesn't really work like this right now, so I'm going to turn the amp sim back off. And I'm going to pull the dummy plug. There it is, all gone. Now that's the first one. That's just one patch that I've got in there. This is one of my live patches I put together. That Joe Satriani tone is one of my favorite patches. So I use it for a lot of different stuff. It's got a great clean sound. When I turn on the modulation, the detune, it's really full and rich. I do have the reverb set up in the pedal, although when I'm using it in my studio, I just turn the reverb off. But in manual mode, I've found so far, thus far, it's easier for me to use manual mode. I don't use the control pedal, right? I don't bother with the control button. It doesn't seem to really work out for me as well as I would like. So what I do is, like in the first bank, I've got 4 patches set up. One's a very thick distortion. One's a little bit milder distortion. One's a very mild distortion. And then the last one is completely clean, where I can add different modulation effects to it, right? Chorus or flange or phaser, whatever. So that's how I set my banks up for live patches, right? And like bank 1 is going to have the turbo distortion, okay? Bank 2 is going to have the turbo overdrive. Bank 3 is going to have the overdrive. And then bank 4 is going to have no distortion or overdrive whatsoever. Simply a clean patch. That's all. That's how I do it. I find it easier for me to just use manual mode. It's all it is when you think about it, it's just a box filled with Boss pedals. So why not use it like a pedal board, right? I use memory mode when I'm in the studio because I actually set those patches up individually. But when I'm playing live, I prefer it in manual mode. I will swap back and forth, like in bank 1, patch 1. I'll go to that, and then I'll use that for the really thick, distorted stuff, right? If the next song isn't going to need that, then I'll go into memory mode real quick. I'll switch to patch 2 in bank 1, and then go back into manual mode, and then kick them on and off the way that I want them to work. That's what I've found works best for me. You may like memory mode. What I've found is it eats up a lot of memory positions. If you're going to make one patch for one song or one sound, you're going to eat up a lot of memory positions. And it's also going to get confusing, shuttling up and down through the banks and shuttling back and forth through the patches to figure out what's what. That's why I went with something simple, okay? All of my live patches, my first 3 banks, all of them have the same basic setup. Patch 1, position 1, is always a heavy distortion or a heavy overdrive. The second one is always a slightly milder one. The third one is very mild but still there, and then the fourth one is always clean. It's easier for me to remember, right? I don't want to have to look at a piece of paper to figure out what's what. So I just did it that way because it's just easier for me. You know, you guys might not want to do that. That's fine. My memory sucks. So I can memorize 4 things fairly easily. Heavy distortion, lighter, light, none. That I can remember. That's no big deal. All right? And here is, let me see if I can pull this up. I'm not sure if this is going to sound right. No, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I haven't level matched it yet, so I'll do that on the next video, the patch that I've got for Reeling in the Years. It's not going to sound right on this. That's not too bad. It's pretty close. Anyway, another video coming with everything pretty much going through. Everything's going to go into the effects return. And that's when your dummy plug and your amp sim can really sound good. Okay? I use the amp sim and cab sim in the studio constantly. All the time. They're always both on. When I'm going to the face of the amp, though, I turn both of them off. I pull the plug and turn the amp sim off so that I can actually hear the amp. Okay? And that works out better. Okay? All right, so that's all for now. Another video coming, probably, I don't know if I get time to do it today. I'll post it tonight after I post this one. But this is just into the face of the amp. Now, you can still, as like I said at the beginning, you can use your output level, even if you're going to go into the face of the amp, you can use your output level to make sure that you've got better control over your volume live, in a live setting. Because that way, you can just reach down and turn it down if it's too loud. Or you can reach down and turn it up if it's too soft. Your amp's behind you. Okay? This is the problem I always had playing live. was I was never really able to really control the volume of the amp quickly. I always had to walk backwards, go turn the amp down, or go turn the amp up. That's kind of a waste of time. This, on the other hand, amp volume, overall volume, is right in front of me. I'm standing right on top of it. So I can just lean down and turn it up or down as needed. Okay? And next video, that overall volume, that output level on the ME-80, that's the total volume of your amp. Your amp controls die when you put the ME-80 into the effects return. Okay? Oh, other settings on my amp. My EQ is flat. There is no gain. I've got it on the rhythm channel, which has almost, if you crank it a little, you'll get it to overdrive a little, but I didn't want that. So, like I said, my amp volume is only on, where is that? My volume is set at, oh, no, it's not on 1, it's on 2. It's on 2. Volume is on 2. I cranked it up to 5, it would break the windows. So, but next video, you're going to understand why. I mean, if you want to use the amp sim and the cab sim with the dummy plug, you really need to do that through the effects return. And you'll get the actual full sound of the patch, of everything you've selected through the amp then. But your amp volume goes away. The volume on your amp doesn't work anymore. When you plug into that effects return, it effectively turns your preamp on your amp. It effectively turns your post, turns your post all the way up. So you're just using your amplifier as a power amp. That's it. And overall volume is going to come from the pedal. We'll get into that in the next video. You'll like that. I kind of like that better because I do like the amp sims in a couple of different cases. There's a couple of really good ones. But they don't come out well when you go to the face of the amp. They don't sound good from the face of the amp. So I tend to lean towards the effects loop because I can get the full sound of the patch that I've set up. Okay? We'll talk about that next time. All right? Peace!